How you doing? Grandma wants to finish the story about Jacob and Esau. Remember, Jacob got the birthright blessing and Esau is upset and wants to kill him. And so his mother, Rebecca, says that he needs to leave and let Esau cool off. Following his mother's advice, Jacob left his home. Before he left, Isaac instructed Jacob not to marry any of the daughters of Canaan, but to go to Laban's home and seek a wife there. When he neared Haran, Jacob came to a well where 3 flocks of sheep were waiting to be watered. He asked the men with the sheep where they were from. They answered, Haran. Do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? Jacob questioned. The shepherds said they did. Is he well? Asked Jacob. The men answered, he is well, and behold, here Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep. Jacob watched his cousin Rachel walking across the fields. She was young and beautiful. As she reached the well, Jacob stepped forward. He rolled away the stone that covered the well, drew water for her flocks, then turned to Rachel and greeted her with a kiss, which was the custom at that time. I am Isaac and Rebekah's son, he explained. Rachel hurried to tell her father that Jacob had come, and Laban ran to greet him. Laban embraced Jacob and took him to his home. He was pleased to welcome his sister's son. After Jacob had been working for Laban for a month, Laban said to him, although thou art my family, thou shouldst not have to serve me for nothing. What wages shall I give thee? Jacob knew what he wanted. Laban had 2 daughters. The older daughter was named Leah and the younger Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel and wanted her for his wife. So he said to Laban, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. Laban agreed. Jacob worked hard, and because of his love for Rachel, the years seemed to pass quickly. When his time of service ended, Jacob went to Laban. Give me my wife, he said, for I have served thee 7 years. Laban prepared for the wedding and invited all the men to a feast. At the end of the evening celebration, Laban brought the bride to Jacob. She was dressed in her wedding clothes and had a veil covering her face. Jacob was so happy. 7 years had been a long time to wait for the girl he loved. But when the 2 of them were alone and his bride removed her veil, Jacob was dismayed. Instead of Rachel, there stood Leah. Jacob stormed out to find Laban. What is this thou hast done to me? He demanded. Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Why hast thou deceived me? Laban answered calmly, I cannot give the younger in marriage before the firstborn. Laban made Jacob another offer. After 1 week, I will give you Rachel to be your wife also, if you will serve me 7 more years. Jacob had already worked for Laban 7 years. He did not want to work another 7, but Jacob loved Rachel so much that he accepted Laban's offer. A week later, he married Rachel. Jacob worked hard for Laban. The flocks and herds had been small when Jacob came, but under his care they grew and multiplied. Jacob patiently served Laban day after day and year after year. Jacob was happy, especially with his beautiful Rachel. The Lord knew Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah, and to ease Leah's sorrow, he blessed her with children. Leah had 4 sons, whose names were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Rachel had none. Rachel became jealous. Because she could not have children of her own, she gave her maid, Bilhah, to Jacob as another wife, which was the custom at that time. Bilhah had 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. So Leah also gave her maid, Zilpah, to Jacob. 2 sons, Gad and Asher, were born to Zilpah. Leah then had 2 more sons, Issachar and Zebulun, and 1 daughter, Dinah. Jacob was now the father of 10 sons and 1 daughter. Still, Rachel was unhappy because she had no children. She prayed fervently to the Lord and eventually was blessed with a son, whom they named Joseph. After his 14 years of service were completed, Joseph wanted to leave Laban and take his wives and children to his homeland. Laban did not want him to go. The Lord had blessed Laban in many ways since Jacob had been with him. Laban pleaded with Jacob, "Stay with me, and I will give thee thy desires." Jacob felt it was time he started working for himself. But Laban's offer persuaded him to stay. They agreed that Jacob would go through Laban's flocks and herds and take all the spotted and speckled animals in order to start his own herd. Laban was to keep all the unmarked cattle and sheep and goats. As new animals were born, most of them were spotted or speckled, so Jacob's herds increased faster than Laban's. I think he was being blessed. Jacob patiently served Laban 6 more years before he took his family and animals and returned to Canaan. Jacob had been gone from Canaan, the land of his birth, for 20 years. When the Lord told him to return, he worried how his brother Esau would accept him. Jacob had left his home because Esau wanted to kill him, and Jacob wondered if Esau still felt the same way. When he and his family neared Esau's land, Jacob sent messengers ahead to tell Esau that he was on his way. The messengers returned, bringing word that Esau was coming to meet Jacob with 400 men. Jacob was frightened. He divided the people, the flocks and the herds, into 2 groups. If Esau attacked one group, the other might be able to escape. Then Jacob turned to the Lord in prayer. Humbly, he admitted that he was not worthy of God's mercy, but he prayed that God would deliver him and his family from Esau. While they camped that night, Jacob prepared gifts for Esau. He took 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats and 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 donkeys, and 10 foals. He lined them up in separate herds and assigned servants to tend them. Jacob sent the groups across the brook. He instructed them to tell Esau that the animals belonged to Jacob and were a gift to him. He was hoping that maybe Esau would be persuaded to be nice to Jacob when he saw him. The next morning, Jacob saw Esau and his 400 men approaching. He went out before his family and bowed down to the ground 7 times. Esau ran to meet Jacob. He embraced and kissed Jacob, and they both wept. Jacob had not expected this kind of reunion. Esau had forgiven Jacob and was happy that his twin brother had returned. Jacob's wives and children came forward and bowed in greeting before Esau. Jacob explained that the herds of animals were for Esau. Esau said, "I have enough, keep them for thyself." However, Jacob said, "Nay, if I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present. God hath dealt graciously with me, and I have enough." So Esau accepted the gifts and invited Jacob to accompany him on the rest of the journey. But Jacob knew it would be difficult for his children and the young animals to travel quickly, so he told Esau to go ahead. He would come at a slower pace. Full of love and forgiveness, Esau offered to leave some of his men to help, but Jacob said there was no need. Jacob was greatly relieved that his brother had forgiven him. He was happy to be in his own country once more. Jacob and Rachel were later blessed with another son, Benjamin. But Rachel died when the baby was born. Although Jacob suffered great sorrow at the loss of his beloved Rachel, he found comfort in her 2 sons, Joseph and Benjamin. Altogether, Jacob, whose name was later changed to Israel, had 12 sons. The family of each son was called a tribe, and they were known as the 12 tribes of Israel. The promises made by the Lord to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were passed down through those sons. Their descendants would bring the blessings of the gospel to many people throughout the world. The Lord had blessed Jacob and had preserved him to become the father of a great nation, as had been revealed to his mother, Rebekah. And despite all the challenges and trials that the family went through. They were blessed when they were obedient. And we can be too. We will have challenges in our life. That's the nature of life, to be tested to see what we'll do. And if we will be faithful, the blessings will be ours too. Remember, Grandma loves you.